Good day, everyone. Let's take a look at all the new skills that we've learned here in this week, and let's apply these to this little project I've got here put together for you. We're going to say that, let's just take the scenario that we're an investment banker at a bank, and we're working with a software company for developing an app that detects and manages smart devices in customers' homes. Now, to help these apps secure funding for the new project, or help the software company secure funding for a new product, we're using Excel, obviously, as we should, to analyze the expenses and the funding options to create charts that illustrate that analysis, that give us that visual illustration. So here on our current expenses worksheet, here in our range of E5 through E9, let's go ahead and add some classical conditioning here. And we've worked with conditional formatting before, so we're going to use some conditional formatting here to compare our Q4 or our quarter 4 expenses, and we're going to use our gradient blue filled data bars. So as we see, we have gradient and we have solid, so we're going to use gradient blue. So as you hover over these, you will see that the very first one is, of course, our gradient fill blue data bar. So we'll select that. You can see over to the left exactly what happens. If we selected a different color, you'd see how those data bars get put in there. So we'll go ahead and select that, and now we have more visual representation of the data. Now let's take a look here at range F5 through F10. So we've got that there. And here, let's add some line sparklines based off the data here in our range of B5 through, you guessed it, E10. And this will allow us to compare each category of expenses and total expenses from Q1 through Q4, or quarter 1 through quarter 4. So we'll come back up to the Insert tab, and we'll click on that, and then we're going to come over to the sparklines group, and here you can see we have 3 different types of sparklines. We've got our line, our column, and our win-loss. And as I said, we're going to add a line sparkline. So I'll click that. And it says, what's the data range? Well, we know the data range that we want is B5 through E10. And then we want the sparklines to be placed in our F5 through F10. So we can select our data here, or we can just put in the information, but I'll just go ahead and select it here. B5 through E10. Now, I've given all the information I need to Excel. It says, hey, in this range, look at this data, create sparklines, and then put them here. I'll hit OK, and then we'll see our sparklines should be entered into that location. Looks like I stopped a little shy there. So B5 through E10, and we'll hit OK, and our sparklines have been created. Now we can change these. Let's see if I go here, see my sparklines. I can change these. Let's say I want to apply a different sparkline color. So I can come up here to my sparkline color group. I can drop this down, and let's say I'm going to do red accent 6. So I can scroll through here till I find which one I like. Let's say I want this first one here. Yeah, red accent 6. And now that has been applied to my sparklines. I've got different styles I can use. We've got lots of options for these sparklines. As you know, with most of our tools in Excel, when we get these tools tabs, either design and format or just design like we see here, we have lots of new options that we can use. Now if we look over here in our range of G4 through O22, we can see that as we inherited this workbook from someone else, we have a pie chart that was created, and it's comparing how each type of expense relates to the overall total expenses. Let's modify this chart a little bit and make it a little bit more meaningful. So a chart title would definitely help here, so we know what we're looking at, or anyone that follows us would know what they're looking at. So let's just change this chart title. We're going to call this quarter 1 expenses. And we can hit enter there. Well, now that we've got a chart title in our chart, that makes us a little bit more sense. Now let's change the data labels to include the category name. So if I select here and my chart elements, there are my data labels, and I can expand that a little bit. And as I said, let's go ahead and include our category name, and we're not done there. We're going to position this label to the inside end. We can see that right there. You can see as you hover over those what that's going to look like. So I want that to be the inside end, and this is just going to really clarify what each piece of this pie chart represents. Now I also said I want to include the category name. Now to do this, I'm just going to come down here and hit more options. Now I get my format data labels here, and you can see there's category name as a label option for it to contain. What do I want to contain? I want to contain the category name so that it makes sense to the reader or to my audience. So now I've included that. I've done the label position to the inside end. Now I can close that. One more thing I want to do is I just want to remove the legend. So I can come up here to my chart elements button, click that, and all I have to do is deselect the legend. And now I'm only looking at the data and what this data represents. Click anywhere outside there, and our changes have occurred. I'm going to go ahead and save this just because I made quite a few changes since I opened this up. Now we also want to compare how each type of expense relates to the total expenses here in Q4 or quarter 4. Let's go ahead and create a chart to compare the expenses. So we're going to create a 2D pie chart based on the data in the non-adjacent ranges A5 through A9 and E5 through E9. So if I select A5 through A9 and then the non-adjacent cells E5 through E9 by holding my control button down and move my mouse and selecting those. Now I've got those non-adjacent cells. Now I'm going to create a chart. So I'm going to insert. I want a 2D pie chart, and we can see that's a pie chart right there. I'm going to drop this arrow down in my charts group, 2D pie, and there's what it looks like. Let's resize and reposition this so we're not overlapping this other one. So let's go ahead and move this to down. We're going to move it down to G23. I can click on the row here to kind of know where I'm at, so I need to go. It's going to be right below this one. Now that we have that there, let's make the right lower corner down to O39. So here is O, and if I come over here and I see where 39 is, and I click on it, I know where my intersection needs to be. Click on 39 again, just so we know. Looks like we need to go up just a little bit, and now I'm in row 39. Nothing too trivial there. Just for more precision, I'm going to align this to the left of this chart here. So I'm going to select this chart, and I'm come up to my Format tab on my drawing tools, and I'm going to go to the Arrange group, Align. I'm going to align left, and now both of these are aligned. I can do the same thing here if I want. I just want to make sure I stay in my range. Looks very good there. Very aesthetically pleasing. Alright, let's make this chart a little bit more meaningful. Let's go ahead and add some information here in our chart title. We know that we're working with Q4 expenses, so we're going to call this quarter 4 expenses. Alright, now let's make sure we apply a different style to this. So if I come up and I can see here on my Design tab, Chart Styles, you can expand these to look at different ones and see which one you like. As you're hovering over these, see which one you prefer, and I like this one here, so I'm going to pick Style 11. And now it is similar, and we are creating an aesthetically pleasing visualization of our data for our customers. Alright, let's see what else we got here. Let's create a different chart. Let's create a stacked bar chart based on the data in our range of A4 through E9. So this is, we've got our expenses, what quarters, and the values. So let's go ahead and create that stacked bar chart. Once again, we're going to go to the Insert tab. And then over here, we're going to create a stacked bar chart. And as you hover over those, you can see very first one, column or bar chart. So I'm going to drop this down. I can hover over these and it tells me that's clustered. That's a stacked column. Here we come down to our bars. We know we want stacked bar. And the second one is a stacked bar chart. Alright, let's move this over. Let's just drag it over here to A11, right below our data. And we want that to, we want to reposition this, make sure that, I don't know, we're down here in F28, should be a great location. That looks much better. It looks more blended. You can see I use my arrow keys there just to kind of fine tune it a little bit. Alright, let's do a little customization of this now. While we know what our data is, you know, we've used this stacked bar chart to try and make it much easier to interpret our data. So let's go ahead and tell a chart title here. Select that. I'm going to Control A to select the current text that's in there. I'm going to call this, these are my expenses per quarter, because it makes sense. All of our expenses and for each quarter. Expenses per quarter. Alright. Now we've got a little extra white space here that's, you know, kind of non-value and kind of distracts us from the actual data. So let's change our maximum value here on our horizontal axis to 1,400,000. That'll eliminate this extra white space. Let's see. Alright, so I'm going to select my chart. I'm going to right click on my actual axis and I'm going to format that axis. Now, as I said, I want to change the maximum value here on the horizontal axis, and I want to change that from currently 1.6, I want to change that down to 1.4. So if I come over here to my maximum, I'm going to change that from 1.6 to 1.4. Once I click away, you can see some of that white space disappears, and now the data looks much better represented. Okay, for this next change, let's add a shape fill of a different color to our actual chart area. So here in our chart area, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select my shape fill. As I hover over that, you see how the color changes in our shape fill. Let's go ahead and select indigo. Here's indigo. We'll find it here. Text 2, let's change that to indigo. Text 2 lighter 80%. And we can see how that applies there. Alright, that doesn't look terrible. Okay, if we scroll down here, we see we have another chart that's kind of out of our view there unless we scroll down. I'm going to go ahead and close this format chart area group. And let's go ahead and move this. Let's make this combo chart here. That's what this is. It's the combo chart. Let's go ahead and move that so it's, you know, on its own worksheet. So I'm going to select that. There's different ways we can do this. I like just coming up here to my chart tools and going to the design tab, and I can select the location group, move chart. Now I can tell it where I want to go. I can either select it as a new chart to be a new tab, or I can move it to another location. Let's just say we want to move it from this object, the current expenses worksheet, to, let's say, the projected expenses. We'll hit OK, and this will no longer appear on the current expenses worksheet. Instead, it will appear on the projected expenses worksheet. Hit OK. Excel does work for us, and we see that it's now part of this projected expenses worksheet. Now that we're on the projected expenses worksheet, let's reposition this, and we're going to move this up here, bring it up to A12, right below our chart data, and we'll take the bottom right corner and we'll make sure that that is around our J column, and let's come down here to 35. So kind of come across till we're in column J. So we're intersecting here in column J, row 35. So we can easily read this data now. Now that we have our combo chart here, let's change our color scheme here. If we come up to our design tab once again under our chart tools, you can see here to the far left we have a change colors button. We drop that down. We see we have two different schemes here. We have colorful and monochromatic. Let's look at our monochromatic here. You can see as we drag our mouse over them, we see different looks get applied to our combo chart. Well, let's go ahead and select this palette 3. That seems to blend well with our colors. Select that one. It gets applied. And we are in that blue realm, and it looks very visually pleasing. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do a little change here to this combo chart. Let's add a secondary axis for our total series. And from our data, you can tell this is the total area here. Obviously, that just makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click on my chart here, and I'm going to select Change Chart Type, and that's going to bring up this Change Chart Type dialog box. And as I said, this is a combo chart. And since I said I wanted to add a secondary axis for my total series, here are my series. Here's secondary axis. See, we don't have one. There's our total series. I can select checks here, or I can check this here. And you can see that's going to add that to my chart. And that's, we can see exactly what it's going to look like before we commit to the actual change. If I go ahead and hit OK, it gets added, and now we can make a couple changes. We can add some titles. Let's say our vertical axis title. Let's take our vertical axis title, and we're going to use, I don't know, let's see, expenses per category as our left vertical axis title. And this right axis vertical axis title, we'll call that total expenses. And having these titles here on the chart are going to make the reader be able to see our data and know exactly what that data is representing, especially since this is a combo chart and we've got multiple titles here, or multiple axes. So let's go ahead and add that information there. Very simple to do, of course. We're going to come up here and we're going to add some chart titles, or axis titles. So there it is. Now, which one do we want to do first? Well, let's do the left axis title. You can see it there. We're going to add one here, a secondary axis title. Click outside of there. I chose the wrong one. I'm going to hit undo. Go back up here, axis title, our secondary vertical. There we go. Now we can see how it shows up right here. We don't really need this one here. Let's delete this horizontal one. We're going to focus on our data here on the left and right, our primary, vertical, and our secondary. All right, we've done that. Now we can add the title here. So click in there, select all. Now I'm going to call this expenses per category. And here on the right, or the secondary axis title, I'm going to call this, well, my total expenses. Click outside there. Now we see we have this combo chart's been added to this project expenses worksheet, and it just is visually appealing. All right, let's go to this next worksheet here in our workbook, the funding. We can see our funding options that are available, whether it's a loan, bank loan, or we get investors, or small business administration loan. Let's take this information and let's do something with it. And we want to be able to take this information, we want to compare the three options for the app developer to be able to borrow that $725,000 that's going to take to fund the development of this new product. So we've got the information here, we've got formulas that we can see here. B11 has a formula, payment formula. There we go. So we've got some formulas that were put into this worksheet for us that we adopted. You can see what we're doing here is we're calculating the quarterly and annual payments for each of these options so that we can best decide which one we want to go with for that $725,000 loan. All right, let's come over here to E11. All right, there's E11, and let's just go ahead and select E11 and E12. And let's go ahead and add some column sparklines again. And well, we're going to do column this time instead of our line, so we know to go into our Insert tab. And here's our spark lines, and this time we're going to select column. Well, what's the data range we want? Well, we know the data range is for all this information we have here, so we're looking at a range of B11 through D12. That's our data. We want it represented here in cell E11 and E12. And Microsoft will do the work for us. It says, hey, I see all this data and this is how it looks. So we can better represent that information. Well, we want to kind of separate these. And what that's called is called ungrouping. So I'm going to come up here to the group here on the design tab and select ungroup. Now those are treated individually. And let's go ahead and change the vertical axis maximum value. Here in E11, we're going to change that. We're going to change that to, well, if we look at our data, a negative 16,000. And then we'll go ahead and we'll look at E12, and we're going to change this to a negative 60,000 for our maximum value of our access. So if we want to do this here, starting with E11, we're going to come up here to our design tab, group, axis. And as I said, we want to change the vertical axis. Here's our vertical axis minimum, vertical axis maximum. We're going to do a custom value here. And we want our maximum value for our vertical axis to be negative 16,000. If we hit OK, you can see how that changes those column spark lines. Alright, and for our maximum on our annual, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to come up here to our Sparkline Tools Design tab, go to the group, axis, and we're going to change the maximum value of our axis to a custom value. And we're going to select negative 60,000. We hit OK, and we see that design change get made to that spark line as well. Let's create a chart here on this worksheet. Let's create a clustered column chart, and we're going to compare the costs of our different funding options. So based off of our data here in A11 through D12, so I'll just go ahead and select this now, A11 through D12. That's our main data we want to look at for the payments for our different funding options of these three funding options here. Let's go ahead and insert, because we're going to insert a worksheet. Come over to our worksheet. Remember, we are working with a column, so we're going to start hovering over these. We know the first one is column and bars. We've worked with those before. And it's going to be a clustered column. So as you are on there, the very first one, clustered column. Hit OK. There's our chart. And we can move this around. Let's put it right under our data at A13. And let's make our bottom right corner. We're going to drag that over to D30. Give us a little bit more chart area to look at. And it's really in line with our data up above anyway. Alright, so that looks good. But you know we can't leave it alone. We need to add a chart title here, just so it makes sense. If we leave the company, or anyone that we're going to show this to can look at it and it's going to make sense. And this, what did we say this was? Funding options comparison. We're comparing the different funding options. Alright, so now we have a title that makes sense to the data that we're representing. Let's add a data label. So we're going to click here and go to our add chart elements. And we're going to add a data label, or data table, my apologies. Here's a data table. And we want to go ahead and put some legend keys here. Yep, so we can see what our information is about. So we've got our chart, and as always, when you're working with a chart, you'll have all these different chart tools pop up so that you can work with them and make any changes that you feel are necessary. Alright, let's add a little border to this chart. We haven't done that yet. Let's go ahead and add a border. We're going to come up to our Format Chart Tools tab, and in our shape styles, we're going to shape outline. We're going to add a 1.5 point, so that's where we come down to the weight option here. And we're going to give it some color. We'll do blue accent 4. And we click outside of our chart, we can see that border is right around our chart area. That's it. That's a lot of the new skills here in this module. I hope you found this information helpful and that you were able to apply these skills easily as you go through your work for this week. Take care, everyone.